Are you fed up of buying a coriander or cilantro plant from the supermarket only to watch the fussy little thing die on you within only a couple of weeks? Why, God, why? This has to be one of the most maddening things in the entire world, right? I mean, you buy a seemingly healthy live pot of coriander thinking you'll be making beautiful fresh salsa like a proud mama from Mexico all summer long, only to find the thing has melted into a complete mess only a few days later. If this is happening to you and you're pulling out your hair not knowing why, then don't worry, my plant friend, it's nothing you're doing wrong. You see, the grower has done a dirty on you and set you up to fail so you can park the blame on them. This used to happen to me every time I brought home a coriander plant from the store, and it used to really drive me crazy until I finally figured out what the problem was and all my coriander growing problems were eased. So I'm going to spill the beans on what the problem is and how you can easily solve it in this video so you can have much longer lasting coriander than you currently do. And this video is sponsored by Squarespace, but more on them in a jiffy. So here we have a classic pot of coriander that I've just purchased from the supermarket. To the untrained eye, it doesn't look too shabby, does it? I mean, it's green, it's got lots of leaves, and it doesn't look like it immediately wants to pack it all in. The soil looks halfway decent, and it looks like the folks at the store have been watering it when needed, which is about as good as you're going to get. Most folks, including yours truly, pop this onto a nice bright spot on their kitchen windowsill and hope for the best, only to find it scrapping for survival a few days later. So what's going on then? Why all the drama? I mean, you give it pretty much everything it wants. It's in a bright spot with lots of sun, it gets watered when it needs it, and yet it gives up the ghost within only a few days. Here's the crux of it. You've actually got too much bang for your buck. That's right, the growers have been far too generous to you. They've given you too much plant and it's destined to fail because of it. Here's the deal. Have a butcher's at the stems of this plant. How many do you think there are? I'm not going to make you sit there counting them all, don't worry, but I reckon there's a good 20 or so, if not more, and this is something you always find with these types of plants in the supermarket. You'll probably find the same thing at your local family-run garden centre too, so it's not just the supermarkets doing this. Now these stems are all individual coriander plants, all grown from seed by the grower. But that's amazing, right? All that plant in that little pot means you're getting excellent value for money, surely. And that's something that's rarer and rarer these days. Can I get an amen? Well, the problem is all these stems are individual plants with their own individual root systems, with their own individual needs, and check out the pot they all get to call home. Pretty small, isn't it? And that's the crux of the problem. There are just far too many sardines in the tin fighting for survival, or something like that. Well, all those plants are fighting for nutrients and water all in the same little pot anyway. And it ends up being a royal rumble in there, all fighting one another until they knock each other out. In an ideal world, a coriander plant wants to enjoy the sophisticated life and just have a few mates around for tea rather than getting all leery on the town with 30 other lads. It doesn't like the mayhem of dealing with so many acquaintances. When we pull this guy's trousers down and have a peek at the roots, we can kind of see the problem more clearly. But by the way, did you know that Sheffield Made Plants has its very own website, and using Squarespace to set it all up was a breeze, and Squarespace have actually sponsored this video. Now I had no idea where to even begin with all this website malarkey, but Squarespace made it all so easy with easy to use templates and tools to make it all look pretty and actually function like a website. We've all got things we'd love to share with the world, so why not head over to squarespace.com for a free trial and check it all out for yourself and leave your mark on the world. When you're ready to launch your very own little empire, follow my link in the description to bag yourself a 10% discount off your first purchase for a website or a domain. Happy creating! So, where does one coriander's roots begin and another's end? That's the big question. It's all one big jumbled up mess in there, and they're all fighting for the same soil and nutrients. And there's not enough soil and nutrients to go around, so the whole lot ends up going to pot, which is why the whole thing is at death's door a few days after bringing it home. So how do we go about fixing this problem then? Well, there are a few things we need to do, my plant friend, and thankfully it's nothing too taxing. Just some basic pruning, dividing and repotting, and I'll guide you through the whole process. So grab your little mister and pull his trousers down to expose his private parts, the root ball that is. With any luck, your plant will be in fairly decent shape. Coriander is a bit of a sensitive soil, so you can expect to see some yellowing stems and whatnot, but as long as the majority of plants look decent, you're in good shape. Now most of the time these fellas are pretty lanky. They're clumped together and are competing each other for light, so they've normally grown extra long stems and want to do their best impression of a smooth criminal. So this is the first thing we need to sort out. We want to stop the droopiness, so grab yourself some nice clean pruners and give your plant a haircut. If yours is looking like mine, then you can aim to chop off about a third of the plant. And don't panic, the plant will recover and new growth will sprout in no time at all. The Sheffield Mayplant's mantra is they will always grow back, and it's none truer than with coriander. So look, chopping off the tops of the plant has made it much sturdier, which is great. Healthier plant and a lot less annoying to deal with. Win. Now, the roots. If you saw my recent basil plant video, then you'll have seen me separate all the basil stems and pot them on individually, and we're going to do a similar thing here but with a twist. I say twist, but it's dead simple. Like I said earlier, coriander is quite sensitive, so won't handle being separated into individual plants, so the aim of the game is to divide the big plant into clumps instead. A smaller clump in a decent sized pot of soil will have a much better chance of lasting the whole summer, because we'll have a much easier time getting to the water and nutrients. So for a plant such as this, I'd aim to divide into quarters. Just use your fingers and thumbs to separate the root ball into quarters where it feels most natural. If the clump is pretty root bound, then you'll have to do a bit of ripping, but they should bounce back once potted on. So you've now got your 4 individual plant clumps, most of the hard work is done. It's now time to pot them on. Grab 4 pots that will allow lots of room for the coriander clumps to grow into. There needs to be some decent room, but nothing massive that is going to drown the plants. Pop the clump into the pot and add soil around until everything is neatly in. A top tip here is to keep the soil at the existing soil line of the plant. Basically, you don't want to bury the stems and you don't want them sat proud of the soil. Just keep everything at the same level. Now, the soil you use is pretty important. It wants to be a free draining mix so that when you water the plant, the soil doesn't cling onto water for too long and rot the roots. This will bring about the death of your plants in no time. So I'm using pre-made soil mixes from Botanica, which are great, and you can check out my link to a 10% discount of all their products in the description to this video. Now when potting on your coriander, you can press the soil down quite firmly. Not too hard though, just enough to firm everything in so it's nice and secure. Once they're all potted up, the next bit is the most important thing you can do for your new plants, so don't skip this step or forget to do it. Water your plants in. Watering plants in doesn't just mean giving the plant a drink. It means adding water to get rid of air gaps in the soil and settling the soil around the roots. If you don't do this, there are likely to be air gaps around the roots, and that ain't great for plant health. So even if the soil was wet in the original pot, you still need to water the plant in after repotting. Don't worry about overwatering, it's not an issue when repotting a plant. And that applies to all plants too, inside or outside. And by the way, spotting the signs of root rot as well as other common plant problems is something I cover in my free Plant Parents Troubleshooting Handbook that you can download completely for free by following the link in the description. Go have a look. Now you might be sat there wondering why bother with all this dividing nonsense and why not just repot the whole plant into a bigger pot and save all the hassle and mess. The problem with doing that is that the roots and stems are still very tightly packed together, competing for nutrients. Ideally, a coriander plant will have room to spread its wings. Dividing it into smaller clumps gives it half a chance to survive longer than it normally does from the store. Once you've done your repotting work, you now need to pop your plants somewhere nice and bright. Within a couple of weeks, you should start to see new growth and you're away at the races. Keep watering, fertilizing and giving love and attention, and you should have a coriander through the summer. But don't expect to be able to keep it alive all year because they're just not that kind of plant. When you can't stop them from flowering is when they normally come to the end of their life. So what about other herbs you buy from the store? Can you do this to them too? Well, click on the video on the screen now where I show you the steps on how to keep your store-bought basil alive for more than a couple of weeks. And subscribe for more fun. See you next time.